All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evarisha Syiem, and I'm a faculty at Martin Luther Christian University in the School of Languages and Cultural Communication. And my paper today will explore capturing Khasi voices through language documentation through a festival called TALAWIAR, which is a folktale storytelling festival. So this paper discusses how audio recordings of Khasi folktales recorded in a live session at the TALAWIAR Narrative Festival contribute to language documentation and description. And the recordings provide rich primary data for linguistic study, capturing phonetic and prosodic characteristics of the language, as well as the narrative form and discourse patterns of Khasi orature. So the paper underscores the value of recording narrative performance in community-relevant contexts, linking linguistic research with indigenous knowledge and cultural practices. The UNESCO website, particularly the Intangible Cultural Heritage page, mentions that language documentation often relies on elicited speech and controlled settings. Yet, when working with indigenous oral traditions such as those of the Khasi, authenticity rests not in recited words, but in performed narratives and like acts of speaking rooted in communal rhythm and cultural embodiment. That is why I've extracted this here. Oral traditions and expressions are used to pass on knowledge, cultural and social values, and collective memory. They play a crucial part in keeping cultures alive. Janice Pariat, one of the prominent Khasi authors, in a write-up in Story Culture World, also mentions this very, very important line that I really can relate to while doing this paper. She says, "We don't emerge into the world with a pen and notebook in our hands. We don't know how to write, but we emerge as listeners and as tellers of stories." I want to share with you just a few pictures of the TALAWIAR Festival that was held in our university on the 27th of March. This is from where my data was collected. So the TALAWIAR Festival, as you can see, right from the setting to the entire ambience of the festival, it offered a very fertile site to record folktales in spontaneous oral form. The traditional setting of the speaker in the center, surrounded by the listeners around the warmth of the hearth, celebrated the art of storytelling through monologues and chants and music. And this festival created a very vibrant platform for our storytellers and performers by blending the solo narratives with group performances, and in a very special way fostered community dialogue, cultural exchange, and creative exploration. I've kept two objectives for this paper: to demonstrate how live audio recordings of Khasi folktales serve as a primary source for language documentation and description, and number two, to highlight the importance of recording oral narratives within authentic community events for preserving indigenous linguistic and cultural heritage. Estes Syiem situates the Khasi orality at this intersection between language and life, arguing that Khasi folktales are not merely stories but worldviews articulated in sound. And in her seminal work, The Oral Discourse in Khasi Folk Narrative, she demonstrates how oral performance remain a central mode of Khasi self-definition, even amidst the encroachment of written systems. So this paper builds upon those very insights, showing that language documentation through live folktale storytelling is not only a linguistic act, but also a cultural reclamation. Continuing on the theoretical foundations on orality and language documentation, the concept of orality encompasses more than spoken communication. It reflects the epistemological frameworks that defined a people's world. So Walter Ong described orality as a reservoir of collective memory transmitted through performance. And in the Khasi context, this resonates very powerfully because the performative immediacy of storytelling sustains language as a lived practice rather than a textual artifact. Documenting such festivals and such storytelling sessions aligns with the goals of the language documentation movement, which which highlighted, or whose primary goal is to establish international mechanisms for organizing information in language through which all kinds of documents could be collected, organized, and accessed at the same time. And in Khasi, recording folktales illuminates the narrative markers such as prosody, repetition, idiophones, and performative cues. So in this next slide, I've just highlighted a few performative cues that were identified during the storytelling sessions at the TALAWIAR Festival. We have 6 categories of the performative cues, from verbal to paralinguistic to gestural, spatial, and social cues. And it was so interesting to note that almost every instance of the storytelling, we identified, and we could actually notice the change in the mood and in the whole vibe of the audience as they responded to the verbal cues. The moment that the storytelling began, they responded to the paralinguistic cues when the storyteller used her voice to the rhythm, the pitch, the tone to create the mood for the story, to body language, and then spatial, of course, spatial cues because of the setting, and of course the social cues, which was identified when the moment the storytelling began. There was a hush. It was what I've chosen to call here the communal hush before the story began. So the TALAWIAR Festival recording. The TALAWIAR Festival helped to bridge descriptive linguistics with cultural linguistics. Descriptive in a way because language through this recording can be preserved, and cultural linguistics because the recording could preserve or interpret the very soul of that language so that its meanings and values are preserved too.
Ja, laten nog jag få tablet orange text mitnehmen. Vier Teile so einfach.
Sorry, ma'am. Was that a comment?
Yeah, I think someone had the microphone turned on.
Ah, okay.
I think this wasn't. Alexandra, okay. Please turn off your microphone.
All right. So I'll continue.
You continue, please. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, sir. So in her chapter, Orality of Life, Professor Esther Syiem differentiates between retrieving orality as nostalgia and acknowledging it as a living tradition capable of embracing or incorporating even modern complexities. So here she says oral tales did not disappear because they function as indigenous philosophy, a communion with the universe of the speaking world itself. So her framework provides a conceptual scaffolding for documenting Khasi storytelling, because each tale became both linguistic artifact as well as cultural utterance. So the oral performance foregrounds as she writes in her writing, in her book. It foregrounds the renewal or the aura of the life force that animates all beings, showing how language serves as an ethical and spiritual link between humans and nature. So by integrating these principles, the TALAWIAR documentation treats recorded voices not just as static data, but as living narratives. So language documentation as community empowerment, capturing the Khasi folktales during festivals such as TALAWIAR legitimates storytelling as scholarship. It transcends language preservation, providing community members co-authorship over narrative representation. And this practice resonates with Syem's ethic of the speaking universe, one where knowledge is produced together instead of being extracted. So to summarize my presentation, the TALAWIAR recordings will continue to show how storytelling as performance is both data and dialogue. They place language within the ecology of performance. Such practices of documentation prevent the reducing of Khasi to a mere descriptive object. Instead, they verify it as a constant act of creative speech. And live narrations of Khasi folktales is not simply the documenting of a language, but the continuation of an entire way of thought, a speaking universe spoken into existence once more. I hope I have time. I'd like to share this a small extract of the storytelling. It's about 3 to 4 minutes of this. This particular storytelling is when the storyteller relates a very favorite story among the Khasis, the story about Usir Lapalang, or Lapalang the stag, or the deer. Interpreted, translated many times, even into Khasi. So this is a story about this beautiful young deer named Lapalang, who the only son of his mother. He was a gentle, curious, and a young deer of youthful pride. And his mother loved him deeply, but also warned him not to wander far from home, because the world beyond their forest was full of danger. But like many young souls eager for adventure, Lapalang also grew restless. And one day, ignoring his mother's warnings, he set off into this wild world, crossing hills and streams until he reached the land of men, the plains below. There, Lapalang was amazed by what he saw, the people, their songs, the villages, the new pasture that was so enticing to him. And as the story goes, Usir Lapalang became a target in that new land, and he was tragically shot with an arrow. So the story relates the inconsolable cry of the mother, who was consumed in grief when she found out the fate of her son, and cried out her heart in pain and loss.
Actually, I have prepared with another Khasi folktale, but then I was thinking that this is a university where we have young students who really need moral lessons. So I brought up this story of Usir Lapalang, which has a moral story that we should not disobey our parents. Okay, let us listen and enjoy the story. Inday ulang, slam ba, dadan, hako may Krishna, hati, hari thor, hako jam jam kini ki yong Khasi. Usir Lapalang, banda kakuye na ba yin, ya Usir Lapalang, Usir Lapalang, dim. Kilo dopa. Omba. Near steer. The it happens still in a joke to me. Namakajuya boy, mana po. Right and not the Jimmy jumping. Right and not in the Canadian jumping of the gun. Kayaya wrong in our John Coon. Here, who eat as well. Hatu kan bawang snow tengah kita jinong, maka kemir ke snow tengah kita jinong ke jemput, kia sini buat, naki sini buat, syaki benai, syaki senyum, dahulu sama hijuan, lap snow snow, syam habajon kejodoh. Kami kome ngalaphan kan bang si bang deki kejing bang kami bang kami hari tua ukha batniwar ni kome bang ada yang mat deki wei bat kejing bang kome kami kong kun Cukup kung bapilo imam tangkat kami begitu Henry kata kejauhan cepat hajamu kaktik barabuah bat ongkan menjusyo kuat dan hai syarir sapai pakat bau dan yai ulai kita kidong khasi tolong me kesha mo kita kidong jangan kate Ani kape kali per kiwan kisah sustain jangki terkam mas mau jawab dua tene syat na bangan let bangan kita kejalan kiwan kita kidom balai kokon pikmir lagi kemat syate balai kenal
I wish I can play the whole performance, the storytelling session for you all. But for those of you who do understand Khasi, I'm sure you enjoyed the musicality of this storytelling session. And for those who do not understand Khasi, please be assured that this was a very, very emotional rendition or performance or a retelling of favorite story for all of us Khasis. So this is an extract, an adaptation from Sosotham's poem, verse regarding Usir Lapalang, which I've added here. He left his mother's love for the laughter of men. He sought the plains and the praise of strangers, but the hills called him home. Too late, the wind weeps still for Lapalang, the deer. The themes and symbolism in this story include a mother's love and loss, innocence and disobedience, nature and civilization, and cultural identity. This was not only a storytelling session. It was a session that advocated, words of advice, especially for the youth, for the young people of society. And in the form of, the theme of disobedience, of Lapalang, disobedience to his mother's words of advice. I have come to the end of my presentation, and these are my references. Kublai Shibun, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Evarisha, for this very interesting presentation and great project you're doing there with this documentation. And
yes,
it was
thank you,
very
sir.
nice to see this example in the end. I don't understand Khasi at all, but the emotions really come through. Some things seem to be universal in storytelling.
Yes, sir. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, very interesting. So we have 10 minutes time for questions and comments. Please write in the chat or raise your hands. I don't see either at the moment. No raised hands, no comments in the chat. No questions, no comments.
There is
Okay.
comment, sir.
Yeah, there's one comment now by Lineke. Outside the university, do they hold the festival in the community?
Oh, okay. That's a really interesting question. Just to share with everyone, this is the first time that we're holding a festival like this, but we intend to make it, you know, an annual event. So yeah, even if there isn't a festival like this in the community, but there sure will be soon once we start making this an annual event. Yeah. And we intend to make it bigger. We want to have bigger participation, a bigger audience, and we know it's going to be a huge success. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question.
Paul Sidwell asks, you mentioned archiving of the narrative recordings. What sort of access do you expect? Evarisha, you are muted.
Yes,
okay.
yes. As of now, sir, the only access we have is of the festival that we have conducted. We intend to access those only because we, since it belongs to the university. Apart from that, we will probably, hopefully explore, you know, gaining access to other narrative recordings, should there be a similar festival like this, sir.
Will this be accessible to the general public internationally?
We have not discussed this with the university, sir. So I think considering certain, I think, norms and policies of the university, we may look into that as well, sir. Yes.
It would be great to have this as a resource.
Yeah, we would love. Yes, yeah. We would love to share. You know, it's something good and valuable, sir. Yes.
No other questions? May I just add to this, going on from what Paul asked about the archiving. You said that this is also for language documentation and description purposes. Do you actively plan to transcribe, translate, gloss, analyze these texts and make them available or use them for linguistic description?
Yes, sir. The transcription process is still ongoing at the moment. Yes, we do intend to document this in a solid way, sir, and hopefully share it with the world. Yes, sir.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, no other comments, questions. We still have 6 minutes until the next talk, and we should stick to the schedule so not to confuse the people. Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, thank you again, Evarisha, for this really fascinating presentation and project. And we look forward to hearing more about this in the future. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.